Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz bassist and composer Revis. We spoke with him on August 27, 2020, during uncertain COVID-19 times about quite a bit, like his latest 2020 CD, Slipknots Through a Looking Glass. It is his 8th solo-led album and his first release on Pyroclastic Records, exploring new territory. He is one of the most talented and accomplished musicians of his generation. This Grammy Award-winning musician has firmly established himself as a very important voice in the world of jazz. His journey is stellar. Get to know him.
Hey, thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz during a very strange and surreal time on the planet.
Yes, it's unlike anything any of us have experienced.
Yeah, it's wild, man. It's wild. But you got a wonderful new album, Slipknots Through a Looking Glass. Talk to me, first of all, what it's like to release an album during a pandemic.
It's different in as much that usually when you release something, it's a conjunction with live playing situations. It's like, so you have release gigs, or the album is a calling card for a body of work, or like playing situations and stuff that you have later, or anticipate having later. With this one, I mean, there is absolutely no anticipation whatsoever. But the good side of that is like you do have somewhat of a captive audience. People are I think more inclined to check things out than things were more fluid.
It's such a great album too. What was your artistic approach? What was your vision with this project?
Personnel-wise, it's kind of an amalgam of a few bands that I've had. So I wanted to combine all of those. So on the horns and drums, those are members of the quartet, the record we did in memory of Things Not Seen. And then Chris and I have done several trio records, and so to combine those was, that was the template that I was working with. Artistically, it was just, as all records are, just kind of like a snapshot of what I was hearing or composing at the time. I got a Rockefeller commission grant through the Jazz Gallery in New York. Part of that is they send you to one of the houses on the Pontico compound, the Rockefeller compound right outside of Tarrytown. So you're up there for 2 weeks to write and whatever, and a lot of the material came from that experience.
So talk to me about your jazz beginnings. How did you get the bug? How did you decide and figure out that jazz was going to be a path for you?
The music kind of just grabbed me. I mean, I started playing electric bass when I was young, and typical musical interest for being like 13, 14 years old. So I was really into Parliament, Earth, Wind and Fire. Then Prince came along and all that stuff, and coincidentally, I was listening to a lot of rock stuff, and went the route of school bands. Did that. Actually played trombone and tuba through high school. I ended up moving to San Antonio, Texas, my senior year in high school, and their marching bands are kind of based on the HBCU tradition. So I was able to actually play electric bass in the marching band. And while there was a guy, Michael Ward, and he had graduated from Sam Houston High School in San Antonio, and he'd gone to Southern University. And so he was coming back kind of doing like an outreach thing. He would have, gigs and come to the school. And he brought like Wes Anderson, who went on to play with Wynton Marsalis and stuff. But all the while, they were really encouraging people to come to Southern University, and Alvin Baptiste was teaching there. So I went there for like a semester, and all the while the music started really kind of exploring jazz and fusion and stuff like this. But when I got there, it was like, oh wow, this is a lot deeper than I was accustomed to, or from what I had heard. So I went back left there and went back to San Antonio and got a gig at the Holiday Inn on the Riverwalk, playing 6 nights a week. And it was typical hotel gig. So we're doing all kinds of music. The advantage I had is there was a pianist, he's pianist/guitarist, Victor Paredes, and he was an avid jazz fan, and he just started giving me all these records to check out. And it was a wide array of stuff. It'd be like, early music to like Last Exit with Peter Brotzman and Sonny Chirac and stuff. And music just kind of grabbed me at that point, and while I was sitting there transcribing like trumpet solos and stuff on electric bass, I was like, wait a minute, what is the bass? What is the bass doing? So, within a couple of years, I had switched to double bass. And yeah, from there, I ended up going back to school at the University of New Orleans, and then from there to New York, and yeah.
Well, you perform with a lot of big names in the world of jazz, from Steve Coleman, Jeff Payne Watts, Jason Moran. What have you learned from those that have had so many years and that are, really kind of in that legendary status in jazz? How did that lend to who you've become as a musician?
Oh, I think I've taken something from all of them. My first big break was being in Betty Carter's band. When I first got to New York. And so being with her for I think it was there 2 or 3 years, I mean, that was an amazing experience. And I think, the level of dedication, the level of, attention to detail, the level of commitment playing wise, like every time those people you speak of and others, every time they hit the bandstand, it's very, very for real. Betty said this thing to me one time. She goes, what, you need to play every note like your life depends on it. And she said, you know why? And I was like, why? She goes, because it does. And that is something that has pretty much, that sentiment or that philosophy has followed me throughout. And all of those people that you speak of have that.
And that's the thing I always hear about her whenever anybody talks about what she talked about. There's always been such a profound nature of what she's imparted and passed along. Talk to me a little bit about, just in general, what do you like the best about being a professional musician? Everything's been kind of put in a different pall now because of what's been going on in the world, and there's been no live music. But this has given everybody kind of a minute to maybe do a little bit of self-reflection. So what do you like the best about it?
I mean, there's so many things. I like it's like being able to get to a point where I play with people that I love and respect. The constant flow of ideas, from those people and others, it's amazing, and I'm committed to the idea of, that everybody is creating some good on the planet. So, that's what I love about it.
You've spent a lot of time on stage, and now there's obviously this absence of being, on stage and live music. Are there any really special memories of any magic moments, anything that's happened over the years that you kind of hearken to now and think about while we wait to get back onto the live stage?
Oh man, it's all of it. I really, I think every time there's something memorable. Every gig you've ever played, there's something memorable about it. Be it good, bad, or otherwise. But no, I can't speak of anything in particular. It's like I miss being around my friends and cohorts, and I miss those. Even though there's a little idea exchange going on musically, people will send an idea to each other, and then somebody will play on it and send it back to you. It's more piecemeal that way. But no, I miss the real time aspect of it.
What was the first live jazz show you saw that made you think, man, this is something I want to do with my life?
That would be the most profound one. Maybe the art ensemble. The art ensemble just totally blew my mind. Seeing that, up until through school, I didn't when I went off to college, I had no intentions of I know I wanted to play music, but I didn't think of it as being something that I wanted to do as an occupation. But seeing them and that commitment that I was speaking about before, and just, I mean, the whole thing was just totally mind blowing. And it's like, wow, as I got more and more involved in the music, everything else kind of, the aspirations of being a doctor or going into, some kind of, biology field, they just went by the wayside, man.
When we do get back to live music and COVID-19 calms down, and what do you hope both the musician and the audience realizes from this time away from live music?
Oh, I think that undoubtedly we won't take anything for granted. Not that we did. I mean, I think that every musician is blessed to, or feels blessed to be able to do what they do, and the way that they do it. But I think that it'll be probably a little more profound as not taking anything for granted. It's we went from working the majority of the year last year to this. I mean, it's like, whoa. And we were scheduled with the Branford Marsalis Quartet, so we stopped in the beginning of March, but we had dates through spring of 2021. So to have that rug kind of pulled out of you, and just in terms of playing wise, so I think coming back, everybody will be a little more appreciative of the moment. I think the music will probably reflect people being more in the now.
The one thing that's really kind of blown me away during this time and covering jazz for as long as I have is sometimes periodically I'll ask a musician, how healthy is jazz in whatever year it is? And I've been doing this since 2011. And there's always a variety of answers, but I never have to ask that again. And that's because every single musician I've interviewed since COVID began, the amount of shows that just one musician has had to cancel is staggering. And yeah. I think it should be a testament when we do get back that people should know that jazz has always been as strong as it's ever been. Yeah. I mean,
certain things get kind of misconstrued in terms of comparing jazz or improvised music, for that matter, with kind of a more pop paradigm, and it's really just like a totally unfair comparison. So if you take that out of the situation, it's always been. I don't think it's necessarily been a music that had broad, the kind of mega appeal that we saw from, anything else from maybe, the Beatles on. It's never had that. So, in terms of where it's at, it's as strong as ever.
Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, that you're the one that's living your life. Who do you think you are?
Oh, I do, man. Somebody, a friend of mine, who's a behavioral economist, was asking. There's a exercise that they do, and they keep asking that over and over. And I'm me. I don't know how to contextualize it. I have nothing to base it on. So, or anything outside of myself to compare it to. So, I am me.
I like it, man. Eric, thank you for taking some time out. Thank you for the music. I've always been a fan. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Joe, thank you very much, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in New York, L.A., Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Eric for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.